Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the September edition of Climate Solutions Live. You're very welcome. We are live on Twitter, we're live on YouTube for the very first time, and obviously live across the We Don't Have Time network. We have some very distinguished speakers for us today. My name is Gary Golden. I'm the co-host of this event. I'm the CEO of Not One Bean. We're principally a coffee supply company. The event is brought to you from the coffee region of Colombia, although you wouldn't know that from the background that I use on Zoom. Co-hosts are We Don't Have Time, and I'd like to introduce Adam Vallin, who is the head of climate dialogue for We Don't Have Time. Good morning, Adam. Good afternoon, Adam. Sorry. Have we lost Adam?
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you, and we're really happy to be broadcasting this. As Gary mentioned, we'll be live on the We Don't Have Time platform, and you're free to go in there and ask questions to the speakers. And you can even, as well, if you like what they are talking about, you can actually also find the profile on We Don't Have Time and give them a climate love on there, and you'll understand what it means. So go on there on WeDon'tHaveTime.org or download the app, and you'll figure it out. And it's a good way to have a dialogue about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I mean, I know that the boys at should I say the people at We Don't Have Time are recovering from a recent broadcast they did. They had our I think at the last count it was 8.4 million viewers on a broadcast there. So we're extremely grateful for the work that they do behind the scenes for this. And at this point, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. We're very, very pleased to be able to say this and extend a warm welcome to John Penrose, MP. He's actually speaking from the House of Commons today. John has served as an MP for Weston-super-Mare since 2005, I believe, and since 2017, he's been the anti-corruption champion for the Prime Minister. So very warm welcome, John. The floor is yours. If you'd like to tell us what you'd like to speak about today, we're all ears. I'm sure our viewers are very interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Gary, and thank you for inviting me onto this platform as well to talk about it. And in fact, the topic I particularly wanted to focus on was or is your company, is Not One Bean, because you guys approached me because one of your key leadership team is based in my constituency in Weston-super-Mare. So I can't really claim to be the MP for all of Not One Bean, since you're sitting in Colombia, I think it is, but I can at least claim to be the MP for key bits of it, put it that way. And I wanted to talk about some of the topics which we were discussing, which I thought really merited being more widely shared than just between the group of us on our initial set of conversations. And the reason why I thought they needed to be shared is very straightforward. I mean, the basic idea behind Not One Bean is very, very powerful in an environmental sense, but there are broader economic senses, development issues, which I think deserve to be pulled out as well. So I'm sure everybody here is familiar, but let me just quickly summarize. The point which Not One Bean is making is, look, an awful lot of coffee gets shipped around the world as green beans before it's been roasted, and it gets shipped around often to multiple different countries, bouncing across the globe in ships, and that effectively increases the coffee's carbon footprint, because it has to be shipped everywhere. So there's enormous shipping cost and cost of carbon embedded in the beans before they ever get to being roasted. And then the roasting happens often in places like Germany or Britain or wherever it might be before the coffee is finally drunk by you and me as we rush to catch our next train to wherever it might be. And that is important, not just because of the carbon footprint of the beans themselves, which obviously is much higher if you're shipping green beans before they're roasted because they weigh more, rather than roasted beans after they've been roasted when they're a great deal lighter and easier to transport and therefore take less carbon to move them around. That is clearly an important thing for anybody who cares about the environment, cares about the planet. But the other bit which I just wanted to tease out here today, if I could as well, is that it isn't just an environmental advantage, significant and important though that is. It's also a development economics advantage too. And the reason why is because the answer to shipping all these green beans all the way around the world is rather obviously to roast the beans as close to the place where they've been grown as you can, either in the coffee plantation or in the same country as that, in a roasting factory of one kind or another. And what that does is it means that an awful lot of the value which is created in the coffee supply chain, the coffee value chain from farm through to cup, happens in the country where the beans are grown in the first place. And that is enormously good news for both the farmers themselves and the roasters and the economy of the coffee producing countries. And if you are a believer in fair trade, as I am, and as I suspect many people on this on this show today, watching the show today, will be, and clearly, if you can add more value in less developed countries and help their economies at the same time for a product which is incredibly popular the world over and has enormous export potential, if you can capture more of that value and make sure it comes to rest in the country of origin, it clearly has to be economically hugely powerful as well. And it's very interesting. I mean, perhaps my sort of very first political endeavor at a very young age was selling what was then in those days was known as campaign coffee rather than fair trade coffee to the teachers in the staff room at my school and trying to persuade them not to buy Nescafe or whatever it was that was terribly infradig at the time, and instead to buy this sort of more morally sound stuff. The interesting thing is that the fair trade movement hasn't really got into this piece of opportunity yet, hasn't really started to get engaged with this opportunity for adding more value in coffee in the country concerned. And if we can persuade them to do that, we could really change the economics of an entire industry and of a global supply chain too. So there's an opportunity to do well by doing good. We can do good by the planet, we can do good by an awful lot of less developed nations' citizens as well. And it just seems to me to be a sort of, double whammy, a sort of, double tick, something which we'd be crazy not to try and push forward. The final thing which I wanted to mention is something relating to sort of at the other end of the spectrum, the sort of grand international conversations which we all see going on at the G7, and more recently at the moment we've got a G20 set of conversations going on, and we've got the COP26 climate conference coming up, of course, as everybody will know. And one of the opportunities where we might be able to drive home some of the changes that I've just been talking about for the coffee industry, we might be able to drive some of those home for not just coffee, but for many other industries too, is through this thing called a carbon border adjustment, which is being discussed at the moment, has already been sort of blessed in principle by, for example, Rishi Sunak, the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, and is being discussed by many other finance ministers and governments around the world as well. And the reason why it's crucially important is because what a carbon border adjustment does is it basically says, look, when we import something, any country, Britain or any other country around the world, when we import something, it doesn't matter if it's coffee or engineering goods and machinery or cars, it doesn't matter what it is, we are going to factor into the price of that import its carbon footprint. We're going to put a price on the carbon and we're going to say, actually, the carbon in this is worth X, $5, $50, $500, whatever it might be, and we're going to put that onto the price of the import when it comes across our border and into our country. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters because what it means is that the UK and any other country's importers will then say, hang on a second, we can reduce the cost to our consumers, to our customers, by choosing stuff which has less carbon baked into its price, by choosing things that have been produced in a carbon-friendly, low-carbon way. And it also, it creates a really powerful economic incentive to do things in a low-carbon way and sort of puts numbers on and creates the right incentives and for consumers and for companies to do the right thing by the planet. But what it also does is it stops developed nations like the UK, but many others too, from effectively offshoring their carbon footprint. I mean, one way to reduce your carbon footprint if you are a UK company might be, it wouldn't actually be real, but you could sort of fool the numbers if you like, might be to say, well, we're just going to buy things abroad where we don't make them, and they may be produced in a really carbon inefficient way, but because we're buying them in, then the carbon doesn't count because it's not our carbon, because we didn't actually put it into the product in the first place. If you have a carbon border adjustment, you can't do that. That particular loophole is, and it's a big potential loophole, is slammed shut. It stops you doing that, and so it creates the right incentives for the importers, it creates the right incentives for you and me as consumers, but it also, equally importantly, levels the playing field between less developed and more developed nations by stopping more developed nations from offshoring their carbon footprint and trying to pretend they're being virtuous when they're not. So really, really valuable, something which is in the wind but not yet here, and is difficult because it's going to require, some countries might decide to go on a sort of unilateral basis, but it will be far more effective if we can get an international agreement for a carbon border adjustment. I'm very hopeful that the wind is at our back and that we will make some progress. Whether or not we'll get there completely at the COP26 conference, I really don't know, but I think that it will help more people. For every extra person who knows and understands about what these things are, understands what they could do, understands the benefits that they could bring to all of us, then the more there will be a democratic clamour for change, and that has to be good. It makes it easier for politicians right the way across the world to do the right thing, and it's always better to get them to do things when it's easier, because they're much more likely to give way. So Gary, I will stop there. Do something unusual for a politician and stop talking and start listening, but I'd be really interested in questions, comments, or anything else that people may have, but that's my tuppence worth. I hope it helps.
Certainly. I mean, Adam, sorry, I thought that was Adam coming in there. No, we mentioned on this on the social media adverts that we put out prior to this broadcast that we were going to be talking about the CBAM initiative, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And personally, speaking from my perspective, I don't think that people realize just how much the impact this could have on global trade. We do get similar questions from viewers over and over again whenever we talk about CBAM. One of the main ones is how do we ensure that this is not just another tariff that's placed on trade? How do we ensure that this is effective? What type of steps are being taken in that way so that this is just not another tariff that's imposed on international trade? You know,
Gary, I think that's a really important question, because one of the reason why I was talking about fair trade earlier on is because fair trade is best if it's free trade as well, because you don't want to have something where we spend all this time sorting out the supply chains, as I was talking about with roasting closer to the point of production in coffee terms, but for any other industry too. We don't want to spend all our time fixing those supply chains and then discover that actually it doesn't make any difference at all, because there are other barriers, tariffs or whatever it might be, stopping the trade happening at any speed or any volume in the first place. There's no point in fixing it and then discovering that actually there are other obstacles in place. You need to get both of them sorted out at the same time. And so really, I think the crucial thing about a CBAM is that it needs to be not treated as a tariff. It needs to be something which is universal. It needs to. That's why I was saying it's better if we can get something which is international. And the reason why is because we don't want people saying, well, we're going to try and pick on countries that are, not honouring their zero carbon pledges, or haven't made strong enough zero carbon pledges yet. We want them to make those pledges, but whether they have or whether they haven't, the carbon border adjustment mechanism ought to be universal, and it ought to be ubiquitous. It ought to apply to everything all the time, rather than just to some things, which is what inherently tariffs do. So we shouldn't use it to play favorites. We shouldn't use it to pick on particular countries or particular industries. Actually, if it's going to work, it needs to apply to every country and every industry, and that will then create the economy-wide and planet-wide kind of incentives that we need to drive the kinds of change that we're talking about. So you're right, people worry about it being just another tariff. It will be a huge missed opportunity if that's the way it's treated, and that's why it's really helpful, if we can, to get some sort of international agreement behind it to prevent that kind of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's. I know it only applies to a number of approved goods at the moment, but this CBAM will be rolled out to encompass the vast majority of trade. And, you know, we only see that on the platform here. We see it as a good thing. We see it as leveling the playing field. We see it as resisting carbon leakage as such, for, you know, where companies would relocate or would choose to buy goods simply based on the price, as opposed to the economic damage built into the product. On a more general note, then, how is the UK government? I mean, I'm from the UK, so it's something that's close to my heart, obviously. How is the UK's green ambition coming along? I mean, how is it perceived, and how do you feel it's going?
Well, I think at the moment, and actually, we're not short of ambition. You know, you can always be better on these things. I do appreciate, but you know, relative to many other countries, you know, we've committed to getting to net zero. That's a pretty ambitious timescale. Could be faster, but it's still pretty ambitious compared to many other countries. The thing which I and many others worry about is not the ambition so much as the execution. I mean, there's an awful lot of things about Britain's journey towards net zero, and actually many other developed nations' journeys towards net zero too, which are just not clear yet. Not least because there's an awful lot of technologies that need to improve in order to make that transition faster or cheaper or more economically efficient, if it can possibly be done. You know, not least things like, I'm sure you have regular conversations about, you know, energy storage and battery technology. Now, if that can be improved, it just means that, you know, the intermittency of an awful lot of our renewables, certainly offshore wind in the UK's case, can be evened out and ironed out, and that makes renewables economically much more powerful as well. That's just one example, but every country will have some other equivalent of that. And those technologies are promising, they are developing, but they aren't, you know, fully developed yet at all. And you've only got to look at what's happening in battery technology for you know, electric cars, for example, to see both the improvements that have already happened, but also you know, the improvements in the embedded carbon of an electric car. I mean, it's fairly recently, I think, that VW published something showing that their traditional petrol-powered Golf and their electric-powered Golf actually needed to do something like 90,000 kilometers in the electric before the carbon of the electrically powered vehicle was lower than the traditionally powered vehicle, and that was more to do with the production methods of the electrical powered vehicle rather than the inherent, you know, rightness or wrongness of whether or not you should be going for electric powered transport. So huge amounts that needs to be done. I think in the UK's case as well, one of the biggest challenges that we're facing is heating, and particularly heating of, you know, buildings of all kinds. And that's partly because the UK has a very old housing stock on average. And so most of our homes were built well before anybody ever heard of global warming or of anything like it. And you know, forget the homes for a second, that's a big problem in and of its own. But equally, a lot of our commercial buildings, not just offices, but factories, were built at a time when nobody gave any thought at all to that kind of thing. And therefore, there's a huge retrofit that needs to be done. At the moment, an awful lot of our discussions and our political debate here is talking about new build. You know, what you do to make sure that the new build home or new build office block is up to a certain level of compliance, codes, BREEAMs, whatever they may be. But actually, the retrofit of everything else, the 98%, 99% that's been built much earlier than the new codes, that's the thing that's really going to be challenging. And the difficulty is that, as I said, an awful lot of the technology for insulation is there, and that's why insulation can be an incredibly powerful, in fact, one of the most economically sensible things we can do to change the heating performance of our buildings. But when you've done as much of that as you can, you've still got to have a low carbon method of actually injecting heat into the building in the first place when it's freezing flipping cold outside in January. And at the moment we're trying to get towards that, but again, the technologies of things like air source heat pumps, creating the hydrogen that you might be able to put into the gas pipes in order to switch over to a hydrogen burning gas fueled heating mechanism. All of those technologies are not sufficiently efficient yet. You can create hydrogen, but it's very inefficient compared to the amount of energy that you're using to create the hydrogen in the first place. and we desperately, desperately need those technologies to move on. So, Gary, I guess the answer is lots of ambition, lots of uncertainty, and I guess that from the final point I make about this is the trick, the difficulty, the concern for people involved with public policy like me and ministers in the government is you've got to avoid taking bets that say that pretend you know which particular technology is going to win in 5 years' time, or in 10 years' time, or in 15 years' time, because the cruel truth is that nobody's that clever. Nobody's got a crystal ball. Nobody knows which particular kinds of energy are going to be cheapest or most efficient in 5 years' time, because it's changing so fast, because these technologies are moving forward. If you'd asked any of us to guess 10 years ago which of the various different sources of renewable energy would be most economically efficient and cheapest to create 10 years ago, and ask what the prices would be today, most of us will get those prices miles off if we tried to guess them 10 years ago. And not only that, we'd not only have got the prices miles off, we'd probably have got the basic order about which ones were best and which ones were worst miles wrong as well, because these things change, they adjust, they develop in ways which just aren't predictable. So the real sweet spot is to take decisions now which are future-proof, which allow those technologies to change and don't commit us to one if 5 years from now it turns out that other one, which looked really unpromising 5 years ago, turns out to be the charm and suddenly is leapfrog. That's Absolutely. The crucial thing to make sure we don't end up in painting ourselves into a corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this carbon adaptation methods, this is very much a work in progress. I mean, we see new legislation coming in very regularly, which brings me on to the next point. The lead speakers for the October broadcast of Climate Solutions Live are the Competition and Markets Authority. And they've recently, well, just this week, released a guideline helping companies. And I do believe that the aim of the guideline is to actually help companies with their green claims as such. And so the consumers can safely assume that they are buying goods that are carbon friendly, as opposed to just saying they're carbon friendly. And we have the Capital and Markets Authority on the next broadcast. At this point, Mr. Penrose, I mean, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on here and responding to our emails in the speed that you have. I mean, I understand that you're very, very busy. We would like to extend an invitation to you to come back on here and speak as things progress. As you so eloquently pointed out, this is a work in progress. Things are changing. They're changing for the good, we believe, on the We Don't Have Time platform. And we would love you to come back and speak as things progress.
Happy to.
Good. Okay, so I'll say goodbye, John. We'll be in touch shortly, and thank you for the kind words on Not One Bean. It's always appreciated. It's always appreciated. Okay, our next speaker is David Ekelund. David is the co-founder, I believe, of Icebug Sustainable Footwear. He's based in Sweden. I believe he has manufacturing capabilities over in Vietnam. And I think back in, and I'm not sure about this, I believe back in 2019, Icebug were awarded the accolade of being the first truly sustainable footwear supplier in the world. So David, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming today. You're very, very welcome. And over to you.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying the first conversation here and also trying to learn how to pronounce carbon border adjustment mechanism.
Oh, it's a mouthful. It's a mouthful. Huh? CBAM.
But I'm going to try and blow some wind into the back of the politicians sailing into COP26 with some confidence on what I think is a central part in this, putting a proper price on carbon. When I was preparing this speech yesterday, my daughter, one of them who is 7, she came to me and asked me, what does all humans have in common? And I could think of a lot of things, like I tried, like we all were born by a mother, for example. But her answer was, we live on the same planet. And this gave me some inspiration to kind of throw out a very elaborate speech I had, started preparing, and keep it simple here. And think about what I can share that's of value in this context. So I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of a footwear brand in the outdoor industry. Spent 10 good years now trying to tackle the sustainability question in footwear, accelerating the climate part of it during the past 3-4 years. So what I have is an insider's view of the footwear and outdoor industry, and what really makes the most sense to focus on right now, and how we can, take the best steps towards the transition to tackling the climate crisis, because there is not a lot of time, so we can't really spend a lot of time doing wrong things. To start with, I like this kind of cheap approach. It's always interesting to talk about cars in this and electricity. And I looked up, because I have a pretty old car, it's a diesel car. And then I looked up, okay, if I switch this, I drive very little. If I switch this to an electrical car, it would take about 20 years before I would be, having a gain in terms of carbon dioxide. So really, staying on the cheap side of sustainability is a great thing. Consume less. And if you are a brand that makes products, make sure that you make products that people need in the most resource efficient way. And when we talk about resource efficiency here and tackling the climate crisis, energy is really the key. That goes for footwear, that goes for apparel, and it actually goes for the world at large. So we have worked through many different things, as you talked about before, committing to becoming climate neutral or climate positive, doing that and so on. But what we're learning now, and what we're focusing on now, is the transition of energy in the supply chain. So we have a pilot project that we're part of now, which is about installing solar rooftop at the tier 1 factories we work with in Vietnam. So tier 1 means that it's the factories that assemble the shoes, and then you have tier 2, tier 3, etc., where you have outsoles coming from, you have textiles coming from, you have the raw material for the textiles, and so on. But this project alone, installing solar rooftop at the tier 1 factories, the one that actually assembles the footwear, it looks like that would cut our total emissions of up to 20% in 1 year, while at the same time giving these factories cheaper electricity from day one without having to make any kind of capital investment. So this is really picking, the low-hanging fruits that we have right now in making this transition. Solar, very close to where you use the energy. So talking from the insider's perspective, where focus should be right now, if you approach if you are in the footwear or outdoor or apparel industry, is in decarbonizing the energy in the supply chain. And open the supply chain up. Share transparently where you have a lot of carbon. Go for a treasure hunt, because the thing that needs to be phased out first is coal. But go for a treasure hunt for coal. That would be a real big opportunity to lowering emissions. Then go for the other carbon. And also, if you switch, how can you influence this from a customer perspective? Ask your favorite brands about it. And don't stop at this, what we call tier 1, which is the factories that put the garment together or the footwear together. Ask further up the stream, and don't be happy if they talk about what are their emissions in scope 1 and scope 2, which they directly cause or caused by electricity they use, Because for a brand like us, or for most brands that have headquarters in the West, but actually have the supply chain going into Vietnam or China or other countries, 85 to 90% of the emissions are caused in the scope 3. So if anybody puts scope 3 out of there, call it out. Right now, this is really the cheat code. It's the place to start. You don't even need to do full LCAs knowing exactly what footprint the products cause. We have done that, and we think that one of our latest contributions to what we want to do to increase knowledge is that we're putting that on front of what you meet in the product presentation. So you see what the emissions caused by a pair of Icebug shoes is, which is typically ranging between 6 and 13, 14 kilos. But the cheat code is looking for carbon energy in the supply chain. A couple of other things we have done, like working on the materials. It took us 5 years of a lot of grinding. When you want to have a new material, you need to test it to make sure that performance and durability is good enough. It took us 5 years of really hard work to get to 10 to 15% emission reductions. With this program, we could do more in 1 year with only energy in tier 1 factories. And in material selection, you have a lot of trade-offs. When switching from virgin oil polyester to recycled polyester, for example, the recycled polyester is almost always not as durable. When switching from oil-based materials to bio-based materials, you also have to take into consideration that it's only under certain circumstances that really bio-based materials are a good option. And you also have, which I believe is much too much in focus right now, circularity. In our business, it has become a real buzzword. I saw a recent survey with outdoor consumers where they talked about that on average, an outdoor consumer use a garment they buy 7-8 years. And most of them, if it breaks, they repair it themselves. And a lot of them also take it to the brands to repair. So of course, this is really a very good thing already. And the way to look at circularity here is that other parts of the apparel industry should be as good as this. Because if people would invest more in a product, use it for a long, long time, and don't discard it after a year or when it feels out of fashion, that would be a massive gain. For outdoor brands which expect to have products worn out or used up in certain times, to focus on circularity now, it means that we actually give up a lot of years to have a real impact on the climate situation. It's a good thing to do, but it's not the top priority. And I think in footwear, the circularity projects they're really some kind of showcase projects, which are not, they don't have a big impact, but they do get a lot of attention and communication. So don't focus on special projects, focus on where the real and big impact is. We have a few other things. Offsetting to be climate neutral is better than not doing it. The commitment to get on the science-based targets, the Paris Agreement, getting below 1.5 degrees, halving by 2030, that is of course necessary. But you don't have to have the full plan laid out, and don't delay anything. Go for as big reductions of emissions as quickly as possible. When it comes to installing solar rooftop close to where the energy need is, as in the factories, there are practically no trade-offs, and you can have a massive impact in emission reduction immediately. So in this context, it's a question, what's stopping us from doing it? Because it's also financially sound, and a large part of the transformation can be done now. And I think, and this is what leads to also the previous speaker, The main problem here is that business as usual is too smooth, even if we know that business as usual is a disaster. So we have to introduce some friction here in the business as usual. This can be done by customers. There's a real power in asking questions. From an outside, you can see a brand or a big company as a monolith, but in reality, there will always be a lot of different people with different agendas in the company. So if consumers ask about carbon in the supply chain, this will be listened to. And then another friction that could be introduced is the carbon border adjustment mechanism, or ideally just having it as a global price on carbon. And I think that the number that has been thrown around by Johan Roxen, for example, is $100 per ton. This is how we now also internally price carbon. And we can see that we can still be a company that does really well with putting this price on carbon. So this would be what I would send also to politicians. Indeed, level the playing field, set new rules. Best would be a global tax on carbon, because that would also mean that the actual cost for the carbon, or the income from the carbon cost, would be to the local countries. If that can't happen, put as big an area as possible with a border adjustment mechanism. Thank you.
Not at all, David. Thank you very much for contributing today. I agree with every word that you said, by the way. There is one thing I would like to touch on, and you apologized, or you talked about attacking the low-hanging fruit. I don't think you should apologize for that. I think we're approached constantly on the platform from consumers, from individuals who want to know what they can do. And, the consumer being king, as economists call it, they call it consumer surplus. That's the key to all of this, And if consumers can make informed decisions on products like Icebug footwear, where you are constantly changing out materials for alternatives that are visibly more advantageous in terms of the climate crisis. Is this an ongoing process, or are you at the point, or will you ever get to the point where your manufacturing process is refined to the point where you don't need to actually continue anymore? Is this a continuous thing now, where you're changing out products for more environmentally friendly materials?
Yeah, absolutely. But first I would just say that I don't think that you could really correctly say, as you said in the beginning, that there aren't any sustainable shoes, because they all consume resources, and there are also no really environmentally friendly materials. But there are those with less negative impact, and this is a constantly ongoing process. And of course, I think we will never really get to zero negative impact, but we need to keep this as small as possible, and as a total footprint that we get within what the planet can regenerate. We still will need to use some resources at some point. It would be possible, of course, to get to 100% renewable energy, but that would also require a change on the systemic level, which is, of course, absolutely necessary to tackle the big crisis. Because, for example, one of the case that I have top of mind, one of our factories, they can cover 66% of their energy use with installing solar. Normally, this is something between 30 and 70. But if they're going to get to 100%, of course, they need to be able to get renewable energy off the grid as well. But it's really an ongoing project, both how we think that we can contribute best to tackling climate crisis. We try to get a grip, just start acting as soon as we know what direction is the right, not waiting for perfect, and then trying to get maximum impact out of that and use the knowledge to go another way around. So we will have work to do for a long time, for sure.
As we all have. David, thank you very much for contributing today. You can ask David questions through the platform. Adam will see that your questions are answered, and you know, it's great of you to come on here, David. We've looked at your website in some detail, and what you do is commendable. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Our next speaker is Georgina Wilson-Powell. Georgina is the founder and editor of Pebble magazine, a eco-lifestyle magazine based in the UK. Georgina, thank you for coming today. The floor is yours. If you could educate us all on what it is you do and what Pebble hope to achieve.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen because I think this will be easier. I prepared a couple of slides, so I hope you can see those, because Pebble's a very visual entity, so I thought it made sense actually to show you what we're talking about. And as a slight difference to the previous two speakers, we deal purely with consumers. So we're talking about that end of supply chain, that relationship that consumers have with Pebble, with products and with services. And as you said earlier, you know, consumers are king, and we need to take as many as we can on this sustainable journey with us. So Pebble is quite simply on a mission to end overconsumption. We are a climate positive publisher, and Pebble exists over a digital magazine. We have a big events arm and also a new digital community, which I'll share a bit more about in a minute. But really, I wanted to also start by introducing myself. I'm Georgina. I founded Pebble back in 2016. And one of the reasons Pebble's been so successful over the last few years is we are the readers, basically. We are the same people that want to find the information to make those choices, to start having less carbon impactful lifestyles, to find products that are better for the planet, to support people like Icebug that we're speaking just now. And it's very difficult to find that information. It was especially difficult about 5 years ago. I've always been a journalist and an editor. I've always worked in consumer magazines. And really my sort of wake-up call came about 10 years ago, where I was flying all over the world as a travel editor, having a very glamorous lifestyle on the face of it, reviewing lovely hotels, but also became more and more concerned about my carbon footprint with all my flights. I lived in airports. I had a single-use plastic mountain that followed me around. And really, I've thought, if this is my impact, how bad is that when you times it by billions and billions of people? So something had to change. And when I moved back to London, I wanted to find a magazine that could cater to me, that could help me find the best ethical fashion, or could help me understand my plastic footprint. And it didn't exist. And everything that I tried to pitch into newspapers and magazines, I was told that the green issue is once a year. We only consider green issues in September, or maybe in January. And obviously alarm bells have been ringing for lots of us over the last few years, and getting louder and louder. And I just thought, well, this is nuts. We can't store up all these positive solutions and ideas just to talk about them once a year. So in 2016, I launched Pebble, and Pebble simply is to inspire businesses and consumers to adopt what we call everyday activism and end mindless consumption. So I see there's a real difference between the overconsumption that we've been used to over the few decades and what we call mindful consumption, which is supporting sustainable businesses, buying less, using the circular economy, shopping secondhand, mending, upcycling, all of those fantastic things, and also supporting the pioneers, the campaigners, the people like David, who's just on before, and really helping to connect them to those consumers that are really keen to make those purchases count. I really don't believe that individuals can't make a difference. We've kind of been passive over the last few decades, and we forget that we have a lot of power in our pocket, and actually every pound or every dollar that we want to spend, we have the choice to spend those with planet-friendly brands that really want to make a difference. So we make that a lot easier for people. And we do that mostly through our magazine. In the last few years, our magazine has reached 3.5 million readers. We have content going up every day across news and features, reviews, product guides, product reviews, everything that you would get from a normal sort of lifestyle magazine or a Sunday supplement, something that gives you a huge range of opinion and lots of different things that you can get stuck into. And that can be from the best electric cars, we're obviously talking a lot about that in the UK this week, to the best water bottles, the best shoes. I'm sure that we definitely need to connect with David, right through to the best, people doing amazing rewilding projects or marine conservation, or working with products like that are doing crazy things with algae and mushrooms and mycelium. And that's where we start to get geekily excited about all the innovation that is coming through. Because for me, while this is a huge challenge for us to move to net zero and to adopt more carbon lighter lifestyles, there's a huge amount of opportunity and innovation that's going on. And there are some amazing new brands and new services and new apps and all sorts of things coming through. And that's, for us, is where we get excited, and we want to sort of share those stories and help people connect. So you can find us at pebblemag.com. You can find us on social Pebble Magazine. And we have a newsletter that goes out twice a week with all the latest content that's also free, obviously, to sign up to. We also then have, we launched this year a big Ripple community. So we were on Facebook, we had a big group there, but more and more our ethics didn't really align with Facebook and what they were doing. And more we want to help our consumers, help our readers really play a more active role in their local communities and be citizens, rather than just, defined by what we purchase and don't purchase. So we created a free community for sustainable change makers. It's on a platform called Mighty Networks, which more and more communities online are switching over to. And it's quite honestly, I'm a bit biased, but it's a fantastic place where we really have got a wonderful mix of everyday consumers, students, parents, people like yourselves, ethical business owners, pioneers, everything from textile designers to marine biologists. And basically, we're encouraging people to come together and do more than just like and scroll on their phone. So whether that's signing a petition and getting more eyes onto campaigns that you're running, whether it's getting people to test and help you launch new products, whether it's trying to understand bigger issues, and we get expert speakers in to help you sort of deep dive into different topics every month. There's so much going on. And because it's an all virtual platform, we have weekly check-ins, we have virtual talks, we have a virtual book club. There's no end of ways that you can get involved, meet other people like yourself, don't feel quite so alone, and try and combat that kind of eco-anxiety and that kind of overwhelm that I think a lot of us feel when we're faced with so many different issues to do with the environment, and we know we need to tackle them quickly, and we need to have a positive impact. So it really is a fantastic place. We have like weekly check-ins as well. You can meet other members and connect with other people in your area. We have loads of people sort of launching petitions and becoming a sort of 2-minute activist and seeing how they can use their time that they'd otherwise spend sort of scrolling around on social and do something a bit different. So that for us is a massive change and something we're really proud of. And we're really proud of all the actions that our members are taking at the moment. We also run events. So you can also get to grips with Pebble, our Pebble Fest events. We obviously went on hiatus a little bit last year. We did a massive virtual event instead of something in real life, but really our passion is for in-person live events. And we did these all across London in 2019 for about 5,000 consumers to come along and do workshops, attend talks. We have a big ethical marketplace. There's lots of sampling, there's lots of experiential things that they can get to grips with. And it's a fantastic way for people to really try new products, try new services, and speak to brands that often, for new sustainable brands, they're often online only. They don't have bricks and mortar stores. So there's not many opportunities where people can pick up the products. They can look at stuff that is, zero waste or packaging free, or, sort of different bits of ethical fashion, and really talk to the people who are so passionate about bringing these things to market and about changing the game. So again, everything we do is around this idea of everyday activism and collaboration, really connecting those consumers that care with the people that are, changing their industries and really pushing things forward. And at the moment, we're working very hard to try and bring this back in next year, hopefully around April, back into London, where we'll have a 2-day event, again, with lots of things for people to try and sample, 10 workshops, talks, marketplace, and everything else. So keep an eye out for that. We're excited getting that underway. And I thought I'd just sort of end with this fantastic quote that I absolutely love from Greta, because it really applies to everything that we're doing, and I think also fits really well with Climate Solutions Live and all the work that the other speakers are doing. And that's: the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is wake up and change. And at Pebble, that is absolutely everything we're about. And we want to help you change. We want to make you do it more easily. And we have all of the solutions and the products and the services to help you do that. So hopefully we can inspire you to make some change every day and be an everyday activist. If you'd like to follow us, we are at Pebble Magazine on all social. We're at pebblemag.com for the actual magazine and to sign up for the newsletter. Or you can go straight ahead and join the community if that's more your bag at pebble.mn.co, and that's also free. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Georgina. One thing I'd like to touch on, and I'd like you to perhaps elaborate on, we actually do a fair bit of due diligence before we invite speakers to this platform. And we have a number of speakers who operate different lifestyle platforms. And we're not always convinced of their due diligence, should I say. A number of people we've spoken to over the last few weeks are more concerned with the number of products that they actually get onto the platform. Could you touch on how you actually verify, how you actually do your due diligence before you endorse a particular lifestyle change or a product itself?
Absolutely. So there were a couple of things that we always stick by. We have very strong ethoses running through our team. First of all, we do positive storytelling. So we're not going to slate a product or call people out. We just won't feature them if they don't reach our sort of sustainable credentials that we'd expect within the team as we're talking about things. So obviously we go on, we deep dive into the company, the products. We look at what certifications they've got. So if they're B Corp or Fair Trade or they're a social enterprise. We also look at their, if they're doing a give back or a charity elements, we look at that. We do also look at sort of the quality of the tree planting, even if they're giving trees away. And we look at everything that's available to the everyday consumer and make the best decision that we can. There's definitely companies that we don't work with. So we don't work with fast fashion, we don't work with airlines, we obviously wouldn't work with oil or fracking or gas or any fossil fuel industries, because we are about the sustainable solutions and moving over to more climate positive ideas. And for a small team, I think we do pretty well. We really take good care over what we're talking about. And we also aren't a publisher or a platform that's going to recommend 50,000 different things. We literally go through and choose the things that we feel are the best in class, they're going to last the longest, that the companies are, far and away doing things that others aren't, and are sort of pioneering. We do sort of work also with legacy companies, the people that are showing real change in how they operate and have really, best in class roadmaps of how they're going to be more sustainable, what they're going to achieve. And on those, it's more of a case by case basis, taking those decisions as a team, whether we're going to cover them or not. But it's something we take very seriously. And also we don't, commercially, we don't work with any business that we don't agree with from an ethos level. And also we're an independent publisher. So honestly, I make the decisions in terms of the buck stops here. So we don't have shareholders that we have to, satisfy. We don't have bigger corporates behind us that have different interests to us. So as far as I'm concerned, we're doing absolutely the best we can. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. And as our team gets bigger, we want to really showcase how we choose those brands as well. So yeah, we've got a lot of plans.
Good. Well, you'll be well aware of I know you're well aware of the Capital and Markets Authority guidelines that were published just this week in the UK. It's now law. It's been brought into law that owners of platforms such as your platform are responsible for the goods that they actually advertise on there. It's no longer acceptable. It's no longer acceptable to just rely on suppliers' green credentials. You know, it is now a matter of law, and come January, the Capital and Markets Authority are going to be prosecuting people who don't do this, who simply put a green sticker on a product and say, look, we are eco-friendly. These products appear on platforms that we know of, you know, and like you, we don't slate anyone. We just won't interact with them.
It's a really big problem. I think greenwashing is one of the hardest problems to solve, because you've got consumers desperate to do the right thing, and kind of being a bit hoodwinked into sometimes choosing things that aren't as sustainable as they are led to believe. And part of the problem is that the words ethical and sustainable have no legal meaning, so people can slap them on anything. And unfortunately, this has been happening more and more. And as those conversations mature, we're starting to get a deeper level of greenwashing as well. There's been a huge debate in the UK around the sort of words of biodegradable and compostable and things as packaging evolves. So I think it's getting harder in a way for consumers to trust these green claims. So absolutely, it's a brilliant thing that the CMA are doing. It's going to be really interesting to see how that changes advertising, how it changes messaging, and also how it changes consumers feeling that they can challenge brands and services when they're not sure or can't see how they are green. Because I think that's, you know, again, a missing part of the puzzle. We desperately need to use our individual power to challenge those people to prove what they're doing. Absolutely.
I mean, the CMA is a government body, and they're actually the lead speakers. I touched on this earlier, but they're the lead speakers in the next broadcast. So we're looking forward to working very closely with them. We know you have nothing to hide. You publicize their posts. You share their posts, their videos, etc. And you know, it for us, it makes our job easy. You know, we do due diligence on everybody who wants to appear on this particular broadcast. Doing the due diligence on yourself was easy. You make a good case for everything that you speak about, and Georgina, thank you very much.
The whole team at Pebble are just passionate about making this switch to net zero as easy for consumers as possible and as fun and exciting as possible. So, you know, that's everything we're about. So yeah, there's nothing there to hide.
Well, I mean, I don't know too much about vegan makeup and things like this, but my wife does, believe me, and she checks out your products on a regular basis, and there's no negative price impact there. You know, lots of the products there are cheaper than their equivalents that are actually boiling the planet, you know?
Absolutely. And that's, again, something that we're really trying to combat, is this built-in idea that to be, you know, to choose a planet-friendly brand is always going to be more expensive, because that's something that's drastically changed in the last 5 years. So the variety and the affordability is something that's really, really improving, and something, again, we're so excited to be a part of and to be able to talk about.
Absolutely. It's blatantly not true that there's always a premium associated with doing the right thing. It's just not true. Georgina, thank you very much for appearing today. I know how busy you are again, and we're extremely grateful. I hope we do a lot more work with you in the future.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Not at all. I mean, we'll pass through the questions that we received from the viewers. I'm sure we'll have a number of them. And we'll be following up this broadcast with a number of posts across the We Don't Have Time network, and we'll include Pebble in those posts.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Georgina.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that brings me on to our final speaker. Last but not least is he's a personal friend of mine. Rafa Tapia is based over in Colombia here. He's at the other end of the country, and Colombia is a very big country. So it's not a case of he's not around the corner as such, but he's in the same country. He's in a beautiful area of Colombia called Santa Marta on the Caribbean coast. And Rafa is the proprietor of Sierra San Juan Eco Lodge. Ecotourism is something that's very close to our heart. It's something that is close to the hearts of a lot of people across the We Don't Have Time network. And so we've invited Rafa today to give an overview of his Eco Lodge. And it is absolute paradise up there. And I hope you'll give him time to explain just why. Good afternoon, Rafa, or good morning. You're in Colombia with me. It's still morning. How are you?
Hi. I'm very fine, my friend. Good morning here in Colombia. Good afternoon there in the other parts of the world. It's a pleasure for me, an honor for me to be here, to be part of this, moment. Hello for my friends, Georgina, Matthew, Adam, David, Mike. Hello, my friends, and all the people that is connecting now and are watching us in these platforms that we are showing this information. Thank you for that. It's an honor for me. Thank you, Gary.
Rafa, could you just explain a little bit about Sierra San Juan? I don't know whether you have a presentation or whether you'd just like to take us through the ecotourism, into the way you're involved with it and what it is you actually offer up there in Santa Marta.
Okay, first of all, sorry for my English if I don't speak very well. I will speak slow, But first of all, I would like to tell something about my history, because my friend Gary, you knew my last life, so I would like to talk about that. I come from a hotel family. My father was always linked to tourism. He works in the tourism about 27 years. So he dedicated all his life to work in the tourism. So my family, my mother, my sister, and I also, But however, I dedicate my life to engineering. I went to Bogota and studied engineering, electronic engineering. Then I specialized myself. I made a postgrad in my project management, and I started to work in that area. That's what I met you, Gary, in that moment of my life. I lived in Bogota for 13 years, and 6 years ago, my life changed. My father and my mother proposed to me to come back again to Santa Marta and manage my own business and a hotel, a hotel. So it was a surprise for me, but in that moment of my life, I was looking for something else. I wanted to contribute something to the world, to people, and things happening, They proposed me to that. I immediately said yes. I didn't think so much, and I immediately came to here, to Santa Marta. It was a new experience for me. I was afraid because it was, it was new. This new life I will live in that moment. So I started immediately to work in that, in my business, and well, that's what we are doing now here in Sierra San Juan. Sierra San Juan is located in the foothills in the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta. Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta is the highest mountain next to the sea, and Santa Marta is located in the north of Colombia, in the north coast of Colombia, and we are located in the foothills of the mountain, next to a little town called Bonda. We are in the rural area surrounded by the exuberant nature, river, waterfalls. There are a lot of things, farmers. It's a healthy environment where we are located, And the rivers that cross over the area we are is very important for the city because it provides water for the community. So people in the area, including us, take care of that water. It's clean water, natural water, pure water. So all the community take care of that important river, We have 7 rooms. All the infrastructure of our hotel was built with local people, We hired some people from the area that know about construction, and they helped us to build our house. It's a little house, Imagine a farm. It's something like that. And we have some rooms. We have 7 rooms with different accommodations, and we try to do our infrastructure like, how to say, friendly with the environment, So all the woods we use is from trees that fell down, people that gave us the wood to build the columns, the beds, some tables. We recycle tables. For example, some farmer that had some table that didn't use it, they gave to us and we restore it and we use it in our hotel. You know, that's what we do with those things. Also in the area, we have some activities we can do, not just the hotel. We have a lot of activities. One of them is the chocolate farm. It's really nice, the chocolate farm, because it's a family that have some trees of cacao, and they teach the tourists how to produce chocolate in the artisanal way, you know, with organic cacao. So they teach the people how to harvest the cacao, and then they show the people the process in the artisan way, with the hands, without machines, how to produce real chocolate, organic chocolate. And then they make you a chocolate therapy next to the river, you know, with all this environment, beautiful environment, surrounded with the birds, with the big trees, with the river. It's really nice experience that we try to offer to the community, to the tourists. Also, we have the biological reserve. They have made a beautiful work there, because they restore that area with plants, with local plants, and they also have some animals that have been how to say that in English? I don't know.
Mistreated?
Yes, and they have some animals there, like babillas. Babilla is like a little crocodiles. They have some pigs. They have some traditional fishes that we can find in the Amazons, and it's beautiful. And also, they have discovered there some ruins of settlement of the indigenous, because this part of Colombia has an immense treasure of culture, because we have the indigenous that was living here many years ago, the Taironas. Taironas were the indigenous that lived here until the arrival of the Spaniards, you know. So in the biological reserve, they discovered some ruins of roads, of houses. So it's a really nice experience for the people that visit us and visit the area. We have also our farms with products that we cultivate, and we take people to Sierra San Juan to our farming and teach them how to cultivate the yuca, the avocado, the lemon, the sugar cane. We also teach them how to harvest those products, and we use those products in our food, you know, because we will also want to offer that to our tourists, to our clients, our visitors, how to feed themselves in a healthy way, you know. So we also have that activity in our hotel. Also the waterfalls, because we have the rivers and we are in the mountain. So there are some waterfalls, and we made some activities there, like yoga, like breathing. So it's really nice experience. We also offer to the people, Gary.
Yeah, I know, Rafa. I know that your eco lodge is not a big thing, as you say. You have 7 rooms, but it's part of a much larger community in the area. There are a number of eco lodges in the foothills of Santa Marta, with international, built by Swiss, German nationals. I think there's a Swedish guy up there. I'm not sure, but it's part of a thriving community. And every week that goes by, we see more and more tourists looking for a different experience. More and more eco-tourists, and Rafa is part of that. It's a thriving community up there. It's absolute paradise on earth. But I think Mike's been saying to me that he's got some questions come through for Rafa. Are you there, Mike?
That's right. Yeah. Hi, Rafa.
Hi, Mike. How are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for taking us through the basis of your eco lodge. Can I just ask, what's the breakdown of nationalities that you find come to visit your eco lodge? Where do they come from around the world, or is it very more local people that visit you?
Okay, well, before the last year, we had a lot of people of Europe, you know, from Germany, from France, for Italy, for Switzerland, a lot of people from Europe. You know, they come here and they visit us, and they get surprised with all these the exuberant nature, the fruits we have here in the area. The area is called Paso del Mango. It's like the mango place. A lot of mangoes, a lot of mango trees in the area. We have also avocado, papaya, a lot of fruits in the area. So when they come and visit us, they want to live that experience, to eat those fruits that they don't have in their countries, to go to the farm and take the avocado and use it in their salads, the salad we offer to them in our food. So they enjoy, people from Europe enjoy a lot of that, enjoy those activities. Local people, that we also receive local people from Colombia, from Barranquilla, from Cartagena. Barranquilla, Cartagena are cities that are very near to Santa Marta. So Cartagena is about 3 hours from here. So people can come one day and return the other day to their cities, okay? And Barranquilla is 1 hour from Santa Marta. So local people can also come to visit us, but in a different way. They come to rest, they come to calm, to be relaxed, to do something different, because we have a lot of sea. We have the sea, we live in the coast of Colombia, so they want to do some different activities. So they enjoy our experience in another way, So it's 50-50, Now, this year we are having a lot of people from Colombia.
I'm sure that's due to the pandemic and travel restrictions from around the world currently. The people that do come across, and all the tours guided, all the activities, are people guided, or are they free to go on their own? Or do
yes, you can go with us, or you can go alone. Okay, alone, more of them go with us. It's not a guidance like that. It's more like we try to make people to share with the community. We take people to the farm where the farmer lives. They show how they live. They offer coffee, organic coffee that they cultivate in their farms. And we try to do that. That people that visit us share with the community, share with the people that live in the area. That's what we try to do when people come to us.
That's great. Thanks, Rafa. I think if any more questions come through, we'll pass them over to you after the broadcast, and we'll get those answered and back out to people across the platform if people want to know more about how they can visit San Juan after there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Rafa, I interrupted there. Did you have something else to say?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Rafa. I can vouch for the fact that your Eco Lodge is a paradise. I'll be up there very shortly. And as I say, ecotourism is becoming more and more popular as days go by. Yes. So thank you for your time, Rafa. I hope to see you soon. And I hope you enjoyed your experience today. And again, we'd be delighted to have you back.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Rafa. Okay, so that more or less brings us to a close on this month's broadcast. I'd like to extend the thanks to John Penrose, MP, David Ekelund from Icebug Sustainable Footwear, to Georgina Wilson-Powell, the editor and founder of Pebble magazine in the UK, and to Rafa Tapia, who you just heard of, who is the proprietor of San Juan Eco Lodge, Sierra San Juan Eco Lodge in Santa Marta over here in Colombia. At the next broadcast, we have I've touched on this earlier, but the Capital and Markets Authority, who are going to be the regulatory authority for green claims made by suppliers in the UK, they've agreed to speak and tell us what they're doing. We also have Triodos Bank, who are the largest, if not one of the largest, if not the largest, ethical banking platform in the world today. They've agreed to come on and speak to us, so we're already looking forward to that. We're fully booked on that particular broadcast, and it may be that we need to go to more frequent broadcasts like this. We've had an unparalleled demand from people who want to come on and express, or should I say, showcase their positive climate solutions, and that's what this is all about. It's Climate Solutions Live, co-hosted by We Don't Have Time. And at that, I think, Adam, I think we were about finished there, unless you have anything else to add.
No, nothing from me. We have a few questions, or actually quite a few questions coming in on the We Don't Have Time platform. So we'll just I'll advise all the speakers to check in there and type out your responses so that we can keep the dialogue going, because this is something that, of course, we want to talk about continuously. We want to continuously highlight climate solutions. So thanks for today, and let's keep the discussion going.
Absolutely, and thank you for all the work that you do behind the scenes for this, Adam, to you and to Victor and to Sarah. And we'll see you all next month with more speakers. I hope you enjoyed yourself today. I hope some of this was interesting, and please get in touch with us on the